Tricky Lake Show. Today's topic is no good dads and their baby's mama.
No, you women are smooth too, check it. I got a girl now, got me paying child support. We ain't got no kids.
So, you know, it took me to have 5 kids to have a good relationship, a good, you know, one that's not so traumatizing for the child. And then also being a visiting dad is whack. Buying and providing physical things, a kid doesn't even care about that. That's not currency to a kid. They don't even know about money until you tell them about it. All they care about is your time. And that's the most valuable thing is, you know, the love that you can give your child. You know, the kid just wants you to be there to support him.
The United States Child Support Program has served 13.2 million children in the recent year, with the goal of collecting money from parents, including those who don't live with their children. Since the program's inception, it has been closely intertwined with America's views on public assistance and race, and its implementation shaped what they call the deadbeat dad idea. The original deadbeat dad myth was spawned by a CBS report produced in 1986, titled The Vanishing Family: Crisis in Black America. We will get to that later. But one of the most common talking points is black fathers being forced from their homes and children by black mothers in exchange for welfare benefits in the 1960s. While the man in the house rule did exist, the talking point is not entirely accurate. In the early 1900s, state legislatures began to pass bills that supported single mothers called mother's pension. Since the states operated these programs, administrators were not regulated by the federal government. The lack of governing the mother's pension program meant that states could deny services and money to qualifying black mothers. While black Americans were more deeply impoverished, the aid was given almost solely to white women. One requirement that never changed when a mother received public benefits was the way that she maintained the home for her children. Although it's pretty taxing to locate what a suitable home meant for recipients of mother's pension benefits, it is evident what black women had to do to comply with a suitable home requirement. But the list did include mothers not having a man in the home. Yes, the main requirement in both the mother's pension was that the father not reside in the home with the mother and children. Even when mothers were approved for benefits, few states granted aid to never married mothers or those with savings or equity in a property. The government based applicant approval on whether the children were illegitimate or not. This not only disqualified white mothers, but the requirements were added to the disqualifiers reserved for black mothers. Black mothers were financially disadvantaged based on many reasons before becoming a widow. Employment opportunities were scarce outside of housekeeping or farming, and when welfare became involved, working became a problem. Besides the need to provide a suitable home for their children, black mothers had to comply with other rules that were degrading and a violation of their rights. A rule excluded two-parent families from receiving benefits if the state considered them both able-bodied. Unfortunately, the fathers were absent from the home, not because they had died, but because they had to leave to provide for their families. Black men often left their families searching for work because of employment discrimination and depressed wages for black workers. When racially charged stereotypes of the black father being kicked out of their homes so that their mother can receive welfare, these realities are omitted. When the mother miraculously received welfare benefits, the caseworkers had total control over their lives and homes. This also applies today as well.
Evict me out! Evict me out! Take me to court! You're in my room! You in my room! You in my room! Get the f out!
It is important to emphasize that the rule states the word another when referring to the man in the house rule. The men that the regulation referred to were not the children's actual fathers, but the men were later referred to as substitute fathers. Similar to welfare today, the alleged objective years ago was to decrease the number of people on welfare. Of course, when white mothers received the benefits, there was no problem, but when black women were finally granted permission to receive it, specific rules applied. Even though the man in the house rule was reserved for substitute fathers, it did not mean that overseers of the system did not force husbands and fathers to leave their homes. As of now, the child support system covers about a quarter of American children and can provide a crucial safety net for some women. But it is obvious the current laws need significant restructuring. You see, the system was established decades ago and is based on outdated stereotypes that viewed mom as a housewife and dad as the sole breadwinner. 1975, child support enforcement responsibilities included certifying cases for referrals to the federal courts to enforce support obligations. The state maintains a full record of collections and disbursements made under the plan. Keep that in mind. 1992, the Child Support Recovery Act imposed a federal criminal penalty for the willful failure to pay a past-due child support obligation with respect to a child who resides in another state that has remained unpaid for longer than a year or is greater than $5,000. For the first conviction, the penalty is a fine of up to $5,000, imprisonment for not more than 6 months, or both.
The welfare system helps the disintegration of the American family. It offers money to families if the fathers will leave them and stay away, in that sense undoing the very stability of the family and taking away one of the two parents that children, of course, need. And what I have seen, I'm afraid to say, all over the country is that the legal system works against the best kind of home for these children. We take away, in many of the most vulnerable homes, fathers from those homes. The worst of it is that the homes that are most vulnerable are the homes that are least supported by the policies of local, state, and federal governments. And no wonder then, out of these more vulnerable neighborhoods, we get an endless cycle of troubled, delinquent, wayward youth who grow up even more and become the lawbreakers of our society.
1994 made parents who failed to pay child support ineligible for small business loans. 1996 Welfare Reform Bill.
When I ran for president 4 years ago, I pledged to end welfare as we know it.
Remember that all presidents are planted, and Bill Clinton was sent in to infiltrate the black community. They made him relatable to the ghettos across the world. And while we were focused on Bill Clinton receiving a fake blowjob, getting high, and playing the saxophone, of course, they introduced the 1994 crime bill, and although Bill Clinton did not personally design it, he was certainly placed to win the acceptance of the black community, while they worked against us behind the scenes. Bill Clinton's policies contributed to maintaining and increasing mass incarceration. They planted Bill Clinton, and they planted artists to help encourage people to follow this one-way trip to prison. We could say the steep rise in the black imprisonment rate occurred during the Reagan and Bush years, and the drug war, which was at its peak in the late 1980s and early 1990s before Clinton took office. But remember, the rap group NWA was also planted. All of those planted mainstream artists of the 80s and 90s was pushing a promiscuous lifestyle. Then under Clinton's administration, they strengthened child support enforcement. You ignored it because, well, Clinton said he smoked weed.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it, and didn't inhale, and never tried it again.
1996, Welfare Reform Bill was devoted to major reforms of the child support enforcement program. If a custodial parent needs assistance from the government, they must cooperate with child support. If you disobey, Clinton agreed they have the right to the suspension of driver's license, professional, occupational, and recreational licenses. Denial of their passports, amount to be reported to credit bureaus. Required liens on real and personal property, not dischargeable during bankruptcy. The agency has procedures for notifying a new employer of an absent parent. While we were worried about Bill Clinton and weed smoking, they were reinventing ways to split families and fill jails. Johns Hopkins University sociologist Catherine Eden explained that the traditional roles of mothers and fathers have changed dramatically since the 1970s, but the laws are still stuck in the past. We have a 1970s narrative about today's reality. In 1986, CBS produced a report titled The Vanishing Family, which featured a New Jersey father of 6 who bragged on camera about not supporting his children financially.
I'm thinking about holding up, fighting up sex, my man. You know, if a girl, she get having a baby, carrying a baby, hey, that's on her. I'm not gonna stop my pleasures because of another woman.
Timothy said his children are not his responsibility. He has left them to be supported by their mothers and welfare.
The report sparked outrage across the country and even led to stricter child support laws. Not long after the piece ran, Congress passed a law forcing states to adopt stricter enforcement practices. As we just mentioned, that trend continued well into the 90s when President Bill Clinton's Welfare Reform Act gave the government even greater power to enforce child support collection against non-custodial parents. But as usual, I believe all of that was planned. For one, let's look at the name. This guy was allegedly boasting that he doesn't take care of his kids, and he has no problem spreading his seeds. What was the name they gave him? Timothy McSeed.
Because I'm highly sexed. Like most women say, you're a baby me. I just got strong sperm inside.
I also think he's having trouble memorizing his script.
How many children do you have?
6.
Okay, that's the second baby. The third was?
Mustafa. He was the third.
That was by another lady?
Mm-hmm.
How old is he now?
He's 5, if I'm not mistaken. 504, And
then the fourth one was?
Come on.
Timothy McSeed allegedly died on July 28, 2007. Allegedly, knowing what we know now, it is fitting for his burial place to be Clinton Cemetery. Also interesting is the alleged mother of his children, Alice Cassandra Jackson, who also appeared in the television documentary. However, after the documentary aired, she allegedly fell down and died. How convenient. During the program, Ms. Jackson said she disliked welfare because it makes me lazy.
I don't like welfare because it makes me lazy.
It does?
Yeah, it makes you lazy just to sit around and wait for a monthly check to come in. I just like to work. I like ones you come in every week or every 2 weeks.
It is interesting that the one that disliked welfare was the one they removed after it aired. I'm willing to bet it's a fake death, but no time to dwell on it. Just look at the subliminal message they're sending. She was said to have been mourned Wednesday at a service attended by hundreds of people, including Jesse Jackson and CBS commentator Bill Moyers. Red flag. They claim Jesse Jackson isn't related to her, but I would not doubt that he is. She was used to simply play this little part to help push the agenda. Breaking up families and taking control. Especially black families. They create these heart-wrenching stories from people they pay to say things, and this helps the public stand behind their agenda. It's one big mind trick. And women fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. In fact, in the documentary, I argue that Alice Jackson is reading a script. Look at her eyes as she's speaking.
Alone is so with, but every time I do that, when he's not with me, even that same day or the next day, I feel, lonely without him. Feel like, I just get angry and say them things. I don't really be meaning them.
Do you love him?
She looked up at the same location with her eyes going back and forth. I bet it's a teleprompter above her. The deadbeat dad. Fatherlessness is a public health crisis that affects every facet of American life. Antiquated child support laws and collection enforcement are at the root of this issue. A large percentage of families in the system live below the federal poverty line. Many fathers sincerely want to do right by their children, but simply don't have the means to do so. It becomes a very slippery slope for a lot of dads. As unpaid child support payments accumulate, this often snowballs into another issue. Research has shown that men with outstanding child support debts tend to be less involved in their children's lives. Some even find themselves incarcerated over unpaid payments, and your child now reminds the father of jail, debt, and a bill, all things people want to avoid. So the state turns your child into a burden, and since many states treat incarceration as voluntary unemployment, child support debts continue accumulating while men are locked away in jail, working for the state for about $1 a day, while the jail collects thousands for his stay, giving the mother none of it. It's easy to see why this is such a difficult cycle to break. It's easy to see why some men start to stay away or do less. The core of the problem with modern child support laws is that there is too much emphasis on enforcement and not enough focus on getting fathers involved in their children's lives. After all, it is supposed to be in the best interest of the child, not the government. The state is prejudiced against dads and is one of the main causes of deadbeat dads. Child support is meant to be used for the benefit of the child. However, mothers will alert DSS if that father is missing support payments for her own benefit. However, the men are branded as deadbeat dads. They are viewed as heartless men who have simply walked away from their family responsibilities.
I'm pregnant.
Already? Are you sure?
I got 7 kids. I think I know what I'm talking about.
Dashiki, I'm not ready to be no father right now.
Oh, so you man enough to come up in me, but you ain't man enough to take care of what comes out, get my nails done, get my hair done, pay my rent, and get me a new car? You know what?
Some people in certain areas burdened by unrealistic court-imposed support payments, continuing legal fees, increased taxes due to changes imposed by Bill C-41, and estrangement from their children. Some men find themselves caught in a downward spiral of depression and have resorted to the ultimate escape: suicide, or simply the mother of the child or the entire family. I will not refer to celebrity cases because a lot of celebrity news is fake.
And having Mr. Kennedy running all around all night looking for a gun when I didn't need it.
As we stated many times before, if a trial is broadcast all over TV, it is fake, it's not real. This rape script was no different. Instead, let's look at it in the most realistic way possible.
Andre, I can tell you the crime scene here at the Pinewood Hill condos is large. Take a look, and so is the response. The top brass of the police department is here, as well as the state's attorney. Several family members have arrived.
Beautiful mom, beautiful daughter, beautiful, beautiful daughter.
And now, the young mother and her toddler are gone, shot and killed outside her uncle's house in the 1300 block of Palmer Road. Just before 7 a.m., neighbors called in the report of the woman in her late 20s in the parking lot, her daughter suffering in a nearby car, later pronounced at the hospital.
Boswell Johnson and Davis had an ongoing disagreement over child support payments, police said. Court records indicate that Boswell Johnson was ordered in November to pay $600 in monthly child support.
I'm at $13,000 a month. What more do you want from me?
Also, the courts do not care if the money you have left over was not enough to support your current household and other kids. You are now expected to support 2 households. Add to this the cost of expensive litigation, and the fact that one party may be trying to use money as a means of obtaining concessions, such as access or custody, and we have a recipe for disaster.
Oh my God, no!
Studies find that when a child is raised without the active involvement of a father, they are more likely to suffer a diminished sense of physical and emotional security, behavioral and social problems, high crime, as 85% of youth in prison have an absent father. Fatherless children are more likely to have sex before the age of 16. More likely to use and abuse alcohol and other drugs. Also, 90% of runaway kids have an absent father. And as adults, fatherless children are more likely to experience unemployment. Apparently, the mother and child support system doesn't care about this. The system. The child welfare system operates surprisingly like its criminal counterpart. It is a $30 billion apparatus that monitors, controls, and punishes families in the same black communities systematically subjugated by police and prisons. It is more accurate to call it a family policing system. Many believe the child welfare system protects children from abuse or going without. But in reality, it's the opposite. I believe this system was always designed to punish black families. Child support puts families under intense state surveillance and regulation. Black children are disproportionately likely to be torn and end up being raised in an unstable or single-parent household. In poverty-stricken areas, this leaves many kids open to being influenced a lot easier while the father is being pulled away. This leads to the government or entertainment raising your kids, the rappers becoming the role models, which ultimately leads to juvenile detention and imprisonment, your daughters following the Cardi B's and being promiscuous. I believe this is a form of mental abuse on the child. As one commenter said, child support was never designed to be about the child. That is the lie the court and its band of greedy thieves in the support collections unit tell non-custodial parents who most often happen to be fathers. Child support is a money-making scam used by the state which is financially motivated to enforce child support. Every dollar of child support collected by the state gets in federal grant money on a one-to-one basis. Most of this money goes to fill the welfare coffers of the state that likes to pander to single mothers and their children. Welfare recipients are most often single mothers. If you don't believe all this, it's all spelled out in the Social Security Act Title IV, Part D, Section 458, Incentive Payments to States. This scam employs many people.
I can attest firsthand that there is not a single article of the United States Constitution that is not routinely violated in family court. The family court commissioner was my judge, jury, and executioner. So why are family courts throughout this state and this country separating children from perfectly loving, fit, and capable fathers without due process? What's driving all of it? Our government has financially incentivized the kidnapping and trafficking of children for profit through Title 4D of the Social Security Act, otherwise known as child support. Shocked and stupefied are not strong enough terms to describe my state of mind when I found out that the entire judiciary in California, including this council, are under contract with the executive branch agencies to help assist with enforcing Title 4D in exchange for federal incentive funds. In what way, shape, or form could any of you sit here with a straight face and maintain that the judiciary is independent or impartial when you've crawled into bed with the executive branch in exchange for money? This is nothing short of state-sponsored abduction and trafficking of our children for profit. Worst of all, this corruption is committed under the guise that it's all done in the best interest of our children. Well, I got a news flash for everyone in this room today. So when the family courts tell us that you're taking our children away from fathers and driving those fathers into poverty through the racketeering and extortion activities of Title 4D, that it's all done in our child's best interest, excuse me when I say I don't know what the hell any of you are talking about.
We will see more of this later. The court treats your child as though they are the property of the state, as though your child is just being loaned to you to take care of. This is called kidnapping, and it often goes by another name, courtnapping. Then, they guilt trip you by asking if you want to take care of your child. Don't you? This is a trap question. Mainly fathers are victimized by the court, which now makes it illegal for you to be a father, and only by the court's decisions are you allowed to be a father. So once you put the father on child support, remember you no longer have the right to your child, you have simply thrown your child in the hands of the state.
Alright, so we're gonna go to court based on
here, this that you refuse to sign.
This is me taking documentation of my children being taken falsely against our will by
Okay, I don't feel comfortable being on your video camera.
Then comfortably take yourselves out of my house. And here we are asking why this is happening, and she's cowering away instead of giving the answers she needs to give. We're being rushed to surrender children for no reason. Guys, we're being told we're being taken away by mommy, from mommy. outrageously claiming a bunch of false accusations over me to take my 4 children and my new baby after getting out of the hospital with my daughter's early birth instead of being concerned about that.
I'm so sorry, babe. I told you they were gonna do this. I told you they were gonna do this to me. I told you.
Well, get them back. Come on. You gotta change your feet. Come on.
All for that EBT card, or as we used to call it, food stamps. Or maybe that free rent over on MLK Boulevard, the projects. Don't buy into this best interests of the child lie. In the event of a divorce or an argument, the true best interests of the child can never be realized once the fraud system is called to govern your family. Ever wonder why the state doesn't care how the child support money is used, only whether it is paid? Because child support is extortion. Don't pay child support, we'll take away your license. Don't pay up, we'll arrest you and put you in jail. If the threat follows a demand, it's extortion. Since the state is financially motivated to issue child support orders, this creates a conflict of interest. The issue with jailing so-called deadbeat dads is more often than not, dad is not a criminal, he is just broke. Or maybe he understands the system and would rather take care of his child, only. The Sixth Amendment, which is the right of a criminal defendant to counsel, does not extend to non-payment of child support action. Failure to pay child support is civil contempt, not criminal.
Somebody needs to pay for all my children and mine and Gary, all our suffering, all our pain. Somebody needs to be held accountable, and they need to pay.
So mom gets to the state to prepare her court documents and argue her case, but indigent dad gets nobody. In fact, a dad can be jailed for as long as a year at a time, without the state providing him with any legal counsel. Gender bias in the family courts favors women, not men. If all interventions fail to garner any money from the dad, a court hearing is scheduled. Usually, a child support prosecutor would represent the mother and the state. The father would generally represent himself. Once again, the courts do not care about your child's well-being. Should the courts ask the child if you rather have your dad or money, what would your child's answer be? Now ask yourself, what would the courts do? Yes, pull that father away from that child, regardless of what the child wants. They truly do not care about our children. The Office of Child Support Enforcement is the federal government agency that oversees the National Child Support Program. The Federal Communications Commission has no problem planting pedophilic messages and sexualizing the same kids they claim to protect. They show us things like this. When choosing a child support payment amount, judges are bound to use predefined calculations to determine how much the non-custodial parent will pay. This does not change whether the non-custodial parent is the child's mother or father. But the reality is the cost of raising a child is far beyond child support calculations. If you can make a lot of money as a doctor as opposed to the teacher or artist you want to be, you will almost surely be ordered to pay child support based on what you could earn as a doctor. The court can't make you work as a doctor, but can order child support to be based upon the income you could be earning as a doctor, even if you are not working as one. When you split up, the court can effectively force you to keep working at a job you don't want to do for the sake of paying child support. Not to your children, but to your ex-spouse, girlfriend, or one-night stand who is free to spend that money however she wishes. Even if the mother has a new boyfriend, if that new boyfriend gets the mother of your child evicted, guess who turns up the heat on the father for missing payments? Yep. Instead of the judge giving the child to the father, the man is expected to pay for her and her boyfriend's actions, disguised as child support. People behind the scenes act as if they can't see it, but most people who work in these support collections units are operating on a political agenda and abuse their positions to achieve those ends. What business is it of the states to decide how and where your child is raised? In short, federal law gives states matching dollars for all the money that goes through the state's child support office. The more men on the system, the more money the state gets from the federal government. Matching dollars was supposed to help states pay to track down deadbeat dads, but now every dad that gets a divorce is a deadbeat. It is a multi-billion-dollar-a-year enterprise, and the states has long been turning fathers into child support slaves for federal dollars. Child support debt may have unintended consequences for both non-resident fathers and their children, and it seems as if women ignore this, which indicates it's for their personal gain, not the child. It's sad so many women would use this unjust system. Equality. We've seen the movements. Women want to be equal, like in an algebraic equation. Anything you do to one side of the equation, you do to the other side of the equation, and it remains equal. Both men and women decide to lay together equally, and both men and women decide not to use protection equally. Both men and women decide to take responsibility for that action equally. If pregnancy occurs from the equal decision is when equality breaks down for the man. The woman makes the decision whether to keep the child, and the man has no power in that final decision. The only thing that can again make the equation equal is the ability of the man to decide if he's willing to be responsible financially and supportively for the child. No government action should have the power to upset equality. But women don't get that at all. Some might suggest signing over your parental rights, but in order to do that another man must be there and ready to adopt that child. It's completely one-sided. Sometimes, the mother knows that the man is not biologically linked to the child. In other cases, they may not know for sure or only suspect that the child is not genetically linked to the father they named on the birth certificate. Women can drag men through the mud through child support enforcement and get away without ever letting them see their own kid or even proving he's the real father. Paternity fraud happens a lot. Paternity fraud occurs when the mother of a child misidentifies a man as the biological father of their child. The woman has zero consequences for such act.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, someone here is in danger right now.
Who?
Me. Because you just sitting there looking all fine. I'm in danger of being swept off my damn feet.
It says there are currently no legal consequences for mothers who commit paternity fraud. Paternity fraud is not considered a punishable crime, and it's extremely difficult to collect or collect funds from the child's mother. Interesting. It's extremely difficult to collect or collect funds, yet it's extremely easy to garnish the man's check, intersect his taxes, and throw him in jail after reviewing his payment history. I guess they can't track the woman's funds. How convenient. Remember earlier, they made laws to track all payments. This doesn't apply to women, apparently. The government has been given far too much power. There is zero equality about it. The working dad, or in some cases mom, gets a huge bill each month, while the mother does whatever she wants with the money. Whenever dad makes more money, he gets taken back to court to pay more. Although the mom did nothing to help him make more money. Why is she entitled to it? Mom's getting that insane obligation percentage across the board. She has no accountability, and there is no equality whatsoever.
You think that putting a man in jail, that's punishment enough for him not paying you? See, the thought should be, do you want this person raising a kid if they believe that a man taken away from a kid suffices for him not paying her money? If I owe you money for child support and you need this money, if I cannot pay you or have not paid you, and you put me in jail, your first thought should be, I don't want him in jail, I want him to have a job. So the whole way that this should work should be, dudes who owe child support should be forced to go work for it, if money was that important and these chicks really needed it. But if you've noticed, most chicks are pretty damn satisfied when their baby's daddy go to jail for not paying child support. Most of the time when a man goes to jail for not paying child support, he avoids court altogether. The next time, whenever he gets out, because he realizes I could go back for any daggum reason, and I'm not going back. He also tends to neglect the kid after you put him in jail, which I can't blame him. Anything that can take away my freedom, I don't care about it. I don't care if it's my kid. I don't care what it is. If it costs me my freedom, I don't want it around. So if a woman believes that putting a man in jail, this punishment, then that means it has nothing to do with the kid, and it has nothing to do with the money, and it has everything to do with her. Jail is a revenge factor, pure and simple, because it has never been proven that somebody goes to jail and now all of a sudden, because of this threat of jail, people are now paying child support. If he can't afford it, he can't afford it, period. Just like if a woman can afford to take care of a kid and she can have another kid. Just saying.
Ami suggested that if a woman has to take a man to court for child support, then maybe the judge should decide to let the child live with the father, being she's not stable enough to support a child. There should be an accounting of where the dollar goes, and when the kids are in school, both parents should be forced to get a job. The mother should also pay a certain amount for the welfare she's getting. We both should work to support the children, especially if child support is ordered. No, instead, you don't pay, take away your right to drive. Therefore you can't get to work to pay them, it takes two to make a child, and one to pay when they split up. Or since we are putting people in jail for a debt, let's do the same for the woman and the thousands of dollars of school debt. I wonder how fast the laws would change. Another quote taken. A woman can give up her child for adoption because she can't afford it. There are no ramifications for this. If a man wants to give up his parental rights to avoid child support because he can't afford it, he's still put on child support and then punished for not paying it. How is that fair? Take a man's money, license, job, children, credit, and home. Then expect him to support his kids. Brilliant government social engineering. Remember, it's not a flawed system. They know exactly what they're doing. It defies logic on so many levels. Why is the non-custodial parent responsible for paying child support any more than the custodial parent? Why is it based on income? A kid can only eat so much or wear so many clothes. There should be a base number that covers food and clothes, split 50-50 between both parents. Not one parent paying all of it, including paying back the state for welfare and food stamps that other parents spent and ate with others or sold to someone else. Let's not get into mothers selling their EBT. Let's not get into mothers using child support money on her new boyfriend. Let's not talk about the mother using child support money to buy the new boyfriend's drugs. I can go on, but regardless, making one family suffer so lawyers and judges can fill their pockets is criminal. Conclusion. The states couldn't care less about whether your child is supported. They just want money. Repeal child support and you will see a reduction in the number of deadbeat dads. But again, this all employs too many people. No one denies the importance of making sure children are provided for after their parents divorce or separate. The problem, however, is that the child support system ignores all the other valuable ways a parent can contribute to a child's upbringing, other than a dollar amount. He may owe you tens of thousands of dollars in back child support. You could have the courts take his car and send him to jail. But if you honestly know that your child would prefer their father in his or her life, do you really want to do that? What do you get in return? Food. Not only food, but the foods are entirely loaded with things that can damage you and your children's health. They're killing two birds with one stone. Although this video has focused on fathers, it is important to recognize that child support reform alone cannot do everything. Some fathers cannot pay more support because they do not have sufficient income. Child poverty will persist even in a system of perfect child support enforcement. In addition, some parents need help in learning how to manage the difficulties of the ambiguous responsibilities they face. Government should not play a role in helping you meet responsibilities to your children. The more conflict between you and your ex means the children suffer at the hands of it. Something we need more of is women being against receiving child support. I've met a few, and I applaud them. Their reasoning is about being fair to the father. If he has little means to support himself, they will allow him to retain his earnings by doing what he can while being involved in the child's life and providing when needed. Wanting to protect a father and the family structure can be admirable depending on the situation, because we all need to stick together rather than have outsiders govern our child's life. Child support orders like this deprive people of freedom in the name of "it's for the children." Just know that your child is not a ward of any state, it's your child, the both of you. Stand up for your family and you'll be standing up for future generations. That's worth way more than any amount of money for child support. The law presumes that people are incapable of determining right from wrong. The truth is, it's just another out-of-control government institution justifying its own existence on the backs of minorities. Just because it's a law doesn't mean it's right. I get it, there is too much money to be made with respect to how it is. Child support, divorce agencies, state agencies and their matching funds, attorneys and judges with their artificially propped up legal fees, and single mothers who benefit from it all. None of them want to change.
If you already have a kid on child support with another man, any kid after that is your bad. You should not be allowed to sit and continue to have kids after kid after kid, knowing you're gonna need child support because you can't support it yourself. That's irresponsible. And why is it that we allow women to be irresponsible? I don't know. We want the women to not sit back and say, I have 4 men on child support, and there really are, and a lot of you know, 2 women with 2 and 3 and 4 kids, with 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 niggas on child support. This should not happen. You get one bite at the apple. Second one, that's your bad. Because you should not be having another kid if you need child support. That's the way it should work.
How can we beat it? Marry an Amish woman, never deal with a woman that has child support orders on other men. Wear protection. Educate your partner about the system, establish a real friendship with one another. Avoid Section 8 housing, welfare, WIC, and numerous other benefits, or how about we all stop paying child support? They need us to make the world run. What are they gonna do? The system needs us more than we need them. They get away with it because we let them. Our kids will love us just the same without sending payments to the courts. Whatever your child needs or asks for, just provide it. Whatever the case may be, when you're down and out, there are many people out there that will continue to kick you. Pick your women wisely, ladies, pick the father of your child wisely. Remember this. A few minutes of sexual gratification is not worth 18 years of forced monthly child support payments.
I'd like to leave you guys with a quote. The state must declare the child to be the most precious treasure of the people. As long as the government is perceived as working for the benefit of the children, the people will happily endure almost any curtailment of liberty and almost any deprivation. Adolf Hitler.